Hello, Space Marines. All praise be the Emperor. And hopefully you guys are jumping in and having a good time. But if you haven't yet, or maybe you're just getting started, hopefully in this video you learned something that makes your experience a lot better and your journey through it. Because the game does actually do a decent job in the opening tutorial. And a couple of things I will tell you in here are a bit of a reminder about those, but maybe just a little bit more detail. But the overall idea of this video is to give you a smoother start and also hopefully make your combat more efficient, more powerful, understand where things are going to happen in the operations and the progression in the game. So it's just a general guide to as much as I've gathered in the game from my 25 plus hours I've put in so far, and hopefully you guys have a better experience on account of what I've learned. Now, when you start the game, you're going to pretty much go into the campaign. You've got an opening tutorial first, and then you're going to have a campaign that takes place on some planets. I don't want to give any spoilers away with regards to length or anything else. If you want to look that up, that's fine. But as you progress through the campaign, there is no level progression. There is no weapon progression. You basically are going to have the option to find different weapons or equip different weapons when you start, and you'll find plenty during missions. Sometimes the mission will give you a flamethrower, like in a very obvious spot. Small piece of advice: pick up the flamethrower and use it, because it's probably giving it to you for a very specific purpose. There's like 2 times it does that. But more often than not, whether it's a plasma pistol or a bolt rifle or whatever it is, you get a lot of a variety of options that you can pick from, see whatever works for you. You're going to have a few mechanics introductions with regards to the jump pack and a couple other things that you'll see through it. And I'm not going to do boss fight guides. Those typically were reasonable. I did the whole campaign on normal. If you do it on crazy difficulty, that is up to you. But overall, the campaign, generally pretty linear, and I'll kind of cover this in the operations as well. It's mostly linear, but if you kind of go off the beaten path a little bit, you're going to find some audio logs, you're going to find some other pickups and things, maybe an alternate weapon drop, things of that nature. It's not really like a fork in the road and you can go 2 completely different directions. You might just check around a corner or in a side room, or maybe if you go on a fork, it's a little bit back, or maybe the edges of a bigger arena, just kind of the outer edges of the room. That's most of the places where you're going to find any pickups or bonuses or anything like that during the campaign, and most of it's just going to be alternatives of what you've got, or maybe a health or weapon pickup, whatever. So, campaign, pretty straightforward, pretty cool story, bombastic, over the top, and those of you who enjoy the Warhammer 40,000 universe probably will get more out of it than I did, just because I didn't know too much of the history. I looked up a little bit, but not much. But hopefully you all enjoy the story. Pretty crazy, over the top things that happen in there, so it's a fun journey for sure. Most of what I want to talk about is operations. Eternal War is going to be PvP. As I said, I haven't spent much in there, but the operations are going to be where you're going to be having your progression, a lot of co-op, and a lot of things are going to take place in here. And you'll notice when you get to first, you have a difficulty, or you have a choice of different difficulties. And you'll notice that minimal, equipment drops are generous, enemies are moderately dangerous, armory data is at the green level, which we'll cover that a little bit later, and your second incapacitation inflicts a mortal wound. What that means is, and up here you can see it says first incapacitation. If you go down and you have to be revived by your buddies, well, your second one will inflict a mortal wound. So if you go down the third time, then you're going to be dealing with a respawn cooldown. Same thing up here. If you go down once, the second time you go down on the higher difficulties, that is when your respawn time is going to be slower. Same thing you can see up here. Also, the medical stims are less effective at the higher levels. Enemies are more deadly. But you've also got the idea that the armory data that you're going to go for is higher levels up here, so you're eventually going to want to get to that level to really unlock the big stuff. So it's kind of a chicken and egg where you need the big weapon to be able to go here, but you have to get the armory data from here to be able to get the big weapon. Either way, difficulties play into it. And you'll notice that depending on the difficulty, it will determine how much experience you're going to get. So at substantial, I get 95 requisition points, I can get the purple armory data, and I can get 1260 experience, which we'll explain. Starting out, which is what I definitely advise for a while, and if you're doing the solo with AI bots, this is probably where you'll live for a little while. You'll live at this difficulty, 35 requisition points, green armory data is discoverable, but you have to find it. If you just go through the mission and don't look, you will miss it. And also you can get, 630 experience per run. Now, what do you do with all those currencies? Well, that's where it comes to the classes. And I'll show you guys tips about gameplay, parries, all of the things to look for while you play after this. So if you want to use timestamps to jump ahead, look for what you want, that's totally fine. But I want to cover all the progression and classes and stuff in here before we actually jump into the gameplay. So let's start here. Hello everybody, it is Ebontis, and I gotta ask you one question. Are you using an old school wallet? leather, trifold, bifold, taking up a lot of space, got a bunch of crap in there you don't really need. For one, it's time to consolidate, and two, let me show you the best way to do it. This is an Ekster wallet. Now, this is the actual wallet that has the folding part on it, so if you can't, fully part with the leather folding situation, they have an option for you. If you want to go slimmer, just the card holder part in the middle with a little back pocket on the card holder to expand to hold more cards. This thing has RFID blocking technology, so you'll be safe from anybody trying to take your ID. You got pockets in the front, cash strap on both styles, and a back pocket or a back expansion port so you can hold up to 12 cards on both. And what I gotta tell you is I love how you get to your cards. It's just this little button. You press it down and they pop out. They're all staggered. I got different cards for different cash back and other things that I use. I tuck my gym ID on the back, and I got my driver's license in the middle, mostly because I don't use it that often. So, why do I like it so much? I never have to fidget. So if I pop something up and I need something, I pop it out. When I'm done, slide it back in. They're not going to fall out or go anywhere. Like, truly not going anywhere. And I've been using it daily driver, and it's effortless. It's just pop it out, grab the one you need, close them down, pay for what I'm doing, wait for that to go through, get them back in, pop them out. The slot will be there, slide it back in, close them up, and I'm done. Slides back in my pocket perfectly, doesn't take up that much space, and I've had a really good time. What makes it even better is the peace of mind from their Finder card. This is something you can pair with your phone. You can do it with iOS or Apple. And if you misplace your wallet in your house, you can have it play a sound and you're going to find that. It's loud enough, you're never going to run out. It's USB chargeable, so you can always fill it up. Mine even actually told me that the battery was getting low, so I needed to charge it recently. I've been using this thing for a couple months. Best thing is, if you're in, say, a movie theater and this thing slides out of your pocket and you're walking away from it, your phone, you can set it up to tell you, unless I leave this at home, this thing's going to talk to me and be like, yo, you need to go pick up your wallet. So I love the peace of mind that the Finder card gives me, and I just appreciate the slim style. I could even honestly go slimmer and just do the card holder and probably have a really convenient pocket situation there. But the button to push out your cards staggers them perfectly, and I get to everything I need to. Anything else you could tuck inside or put in the expansion port that you need. It's been great. So thank you, Ekster, for supporting the channel. I highly recommend their wallet or their card holder, but they have a bunch of other stuff, cool backpacks, a duffel bag that is really unique. Some awesome stuff in there. So anything you check out on their website, even if they've got a sale going on, use code Ebontis. You'll get an extra 5% off of anything that you see on their website. So use the link in the description, check out their stuff, and I promise you, if you upgrade to an Ekster wallet, it's probably the last one you're going to buy for a very long time. Thank you guys for checking this out and for supporting me. Now back to the video. So whichever character you pick, they're going to have certain loadout options. Like this character has like meta rifles and different issues for melee weapons. Some are not going to have big rifles available like these two. Some aren't going to have a melee weapon for the big heavy because they're all focused on guns. Different classes have different armor classes. So some have like the bulwark and the heavy have 3. Tactical's got 3. Assault's got 3. But the Vanguard and the Sniper, they've only got 2. Vanguard's going to have your grapple hook, so you're a bit more mobile. Assault actually has 3 and a jump pack, but they don't have a primary weapon, so it's give and takes on all of them, so you got to figure out what you like. My advice is probably try and focus on 2 max. I've really focused on 1 mainly. Assault was kind of the backup that I picked because I do enjoy the jump pack, which is fun. Bulwark's where I've spent the most time. I also just did a little bit of armor customization. I'll get to that in a little bit. But the idea is pick 1 max of 2, and you're probably going to want 1 alternative because when you go into an operation, if you have other people, you will probably want to make sure you've got a backup, because if you pick Bulwark, but maybe somebody who's in your joining a mission progress already has Bulwark, you can't both be the same class, which is unfortunate because if I've got this one up to level 10 and maybe I'm going to try and go into a higher difficulty, for example, this is where I'm going to have the most success. If I go into a higher difficulty with low level everything, I'm going to be in trouble. So just be aware of that. Now, with regards to the currencies, I showed you when you finish an operation, you're going to get a couple of those currencies. You also have trials per class, and I would recommend just kind of doing these as a way to introduce yourself to the class, get a feel of kind of playing by yourself, how the class's abilities feel, and this might steer you to what class you really enjoy playing anyway. But all of these are going to give you some requisition as you do them faster and faster, and then if you get an A on them, you're going to get these Armoury data, and this is going to be at the green level. And you're going to want these for opening up weapon options and getting to different tiers of stuff. So it is something you're going to want to do. And if you're going through a few missions and you're just not finding the Armoury data, maybe you just don't like searching around every corner, maybe you're just unlucky, whatever it may be, if you do need any of the green currency for Armoury data for any of the weapon unlocks and stuff that you get to, You have trials between every one of the classes. So, I mean, if you go, you've got 18 different ones that you can pick from. So if you are really struggling for the green armory data, that's one of those where you're going to want to spend a little time in trials, get the ones you need, and then keep working on progressing. Now you can see the experience required is going to go up as you go. Level 1, you've got 300. Level 4 is going to be 600. I'm up to like level 10 now, which is going to require 1200. That was actually the same as level 9, so it probably goes up every few levels that you're going to need more. And as you go up in levels in experience, you'll also probably be facing tougher missions, which is going to give you more experience anyway. Now, your experience is basically going to carry you through levels, and that is going to unlock the perk tree. When you start at level 1 versus when your character has every perk unlocked, you're going to feel much, much stronger when you get down there because you've got certain things to where the banner restores armor faster. I'm doing damage to enemies around it. If for some reason my armor gets depleted, I'm dropping like a shot grenade around me, so enemies get, you know, basically stunned for half a second. You really do start to get stronger. I've even got a team bonus here where the delay before armor begins to passively regenerate is reduced for everybody. So that's actually pretty cool. And then, you know, you've got, as you progress through, a lot of them are going to be gear related or core related. This one, for example, a perfect timed parry deals area of effect damage. So now if I'm surrounded by a horde, a guy jumps at me, when I do that perfect parry and then either slam him down or perfect parry a big guy, then when you do that, they're going to get a nice little pulse around the horde around you. And it's because there's always a ton of enemies typically most of the time. This is where you're really going to start to play different. And that's for Bulwark. If you do something like a sniper and you check out their perk tree, we're talking about melee damage increased against majors and higher level enemies if you need to, but also killing more than one enemy with one shot from a certain fusion rifle, for example, restores a charge. So, I mean, you're going to get to the point where you play very differently the higher you level up. Now, with regards to PvP, the way your progression goes is separate from this. If you go into PvP, it's mostly about, seems like the time that you play PvP and level up is going to allow you access to different weapons. I can pick whatever weapon I want with a class. In operations, it's about actually making that weapon stronger. I understand PvP doesn't want to be like unbalanced with one person having a really powerful weapon versus somebody not. But just know that when I take my level 10 guy into operations, when I go into PvP, my bulwark and everything else is still going to be level 1. Just know that those don't carry over. So the thing to know is your requisitions come from the missions you play. Like if you finish a mission on the lowest difficulty, I get 35. Well, when you go to customize your armor and you go into edit armor and you want to go into, say, get some colors going on, you can see that all of these are going to unlock from the heraldry, which is over here. Well, say I want to go for this heraldry and I want to go for this like lime green guy who looks like the swamp thing. Well, it's going to be 30 for the icon. Then it's going to probably be 40 here, 40 here. And if you want this guy icon, it's probably another 40. That would eat up most of my requisitions, which is probably something I would advise to hold off on if you can. I know Warhammer and painting all the little figurines, it is definitely all about, you know, fashion game is the end game. But if you're trying to get stronger, get to higher difficulty missions, hold off on spending those because whether it's unlocking a different weapon variety, which I'll talk about here in a second, or unlocking perks in the tree, those are all going to cost requisition points. So I would always give yourself a decent buffer. So if you're messing with weapons or unlocking different variants or things like that, make sure you don't spend all of your currency looking pretty and then you got to wait a few more missions before you can start being more powerful. That's my advice. If you want to go fashion game, that is totally up to you. So perks are going to be pretty linear. Just as you get experience, you're going to get access to them as long as you've got the requisitions. You'll be able to buy them, and pretty much just like, you know, 1 or 2 missions, you get a level. Going to be probably a little slower as you get higher, and eventually at level 25, you're going to be a bit of a badass. That's just how that's going to go. Now, weapon leveling is going to be a different story. So when you start leveling your weapon, you're going to be down here at the basic level. You're going to be down here with the basic weapon. You'll notice the mastery says 1300 of 1300. Obviously, with 6200 experience, I'm good to go there. As you earn experience, you're going to progress along this bar, and you're going to get access to higher and higher level weapons. You'll notice, to be able to get to the Artificer level for my plasma pistol, I'm going to need 1 purple, which I actually do have. I did 1 mission at a higher level, and we somehow got through it. Don't ask me how. And then also a little bit more experience to unlock this level. So a couple more missions, probably be pretty close, and I'll get here, and I'll have access to these. Most of your varieties of weapons are going to come in a few options, and melees we'll get to because those are slightly different. You'll notice I've got a bump in both venting speed, which is kind of cooldown for the plasma pistol, and it's like not really got a clip since it's a plasma pistol, so it works different. But you're going to have firepower, you're going to have accuracy, you're going to have clip size. And then when you get up here at the top, venting speed and power. I've got magazine, less venting speed, but the power's still there, but I've got 30 in the magazine. And then this one's actually going to have a rate of fire. This one will be faster, but less magazine. So again, everything's going to have its little bit of give and take in the varieties. And you're going, why would I play all the varieties if I just want, like, maybe I just want this one? This seems to be good. Well, as you level up the weapons, the mastery points matter because you have your perk tree. Now, the perk tree is how you're going to get to choose between all of these different perks. Well, the way you get your mastery points is taking whatever variety you've got here, maxing it out. That got me 1 mastery point. So then when I came down to the perk tree, I can either pick weapon cooling faster or common shots generate less heat. Either way. Then when I get up to this level, I've got 2 different varieties. I've got 1800 experience spent in both. During that time, level up this one, and then with some of my requisition points, I opened this one up, started using this. It's not a huge difference in feel. You'll just kind of get to feel which variety you like better. So probably when you get up here, you know which one you want to pick. But if you master both, then you'll notice if I reset all of my perks, I have 3 total mastery points. 1, 2, and 3. So you are going to want to play with every single variety to make that weapon as strong as possible, because then I've got 3 perks that I can spend all the way across the perk tree. And that's how you're kind of going to know which ones you want to mess with. And that's just how some of that's going to work. If I want to kind of go across the top one, I can. But again, for me to go down, not really an option I can do. So it really depends on what your playstyle is. And I don't know if you're going to be able to get extra mastery points that you can spin back here. Maybe you don't go all the way out to the end. If you want to cross over, we'll have to kind of test that as I get farther into it. But make sure as you're playing with a certain weapon that you want to level up that you spend time with both or all of the varieties to get the most out of that perk tree, and that's the way you're going to do it. So the sword will probably show a pretty good example of this. I've spent time with this sword and this sword, haven't spent time with this one yet, so any more missions that I play leveling up, I probably need to buy this one and use it. Now, when it comes to melees, you'll notice they have one very important thing: defense. It's their type of defense. Fencing has an increased perfect parry window, so it's going to be easier to do the perfect parry. Blocking has no perfect parry window, so you could just hold block, but you're not going to be able to do the perfect parries, which are generally pretty powerful personally, but depends on your playstyle. A lot of P's in there, sorry about that. And then balance is kind of in between. So I started with the balance weapon, has a little bit of speed and cleaving potential. The fencing weapon that I've got currently is less speed and less cleaving, but better for the perfect parries. And then up here you can see this is a more blocking weapon, but the speed is faster and the cleaving potential goes back up as well. So everything's going to always have a little bit of give and take to it. But if I get this one going and then I run a few missions, I will have this mastery point that I can spend out here on this part of the perk tree. And you can see if I have a perk point available, I would be either going for melee damage up here and then working across, or I can just go straight across and keep progressing out this direction. And you can actually see the speed style combo gets longer out here. The melees are a huge thing, and I'll show you guys a little bit of that when we get into combat. Melee is a big thing, so finding a melee weapon that you love, kind of important. And that takes me to what is going to be a big tip. Every single class has access to the bolt pistol. So me spending all of my time on the plasma pistol may not have been the best idea, because every single class that you pick is going to have access to the bolt pistol. So if you spend all the time leveling up the bolt pistol and getting it really high, no matter which class you maybe want to alternate to, or spend time on a different class if you've leveled one up, having your bolt pistol be really strong out here, because your experience does carry over between weapons but not classes. So maybe my level 10 guy's been using the plasma pistol. Well, if I come over here to assault and the plasma pistol's not available, I'm pretty much going to be starting over because I am back at square one. So if you have the bolt pistol leveled up and then you go to a new class, you can bring a pretty potent weapon in that'll help you potentially play more difficult missions, get experience faster, that kind of thing. So if you want to be universal, the bolt pistol and the chainsword, probably your priority is to level up. As for your standard issue weapons, some classes don't have them. Snipers have certain ones, the tacticals have different ones, the heavy's got some big ones. So the standard issue weapons, that's going to be kind of hit or miss to be universally applicable. But There are a lot of melees, but like the power sword's only used by one. Combat knife's only by two. A couple have the power glove. The most probably have the chain sword. Everybody has the bolt pistol. So if you're going for universal application of weapons between all the classes, having a bolt pistol that's strong and having a chain sword that's strong is probably going to be where you're spread the power the farthest. And then as you choose which class you want, then you'll be good. So perk tables, pretty universal. As you get experience, you'll level those up. You'll spend your requisitions. Levels of weapons, the more time you spend with a weapon, the higher class that you're going to be able to unlock. You need the Armoury currency to be able to unlock this tier. When you get that tier unlocked, then you can spend time with each of the weapons. When you master them, you're going to get mastery points that you can spend in the perk tree. And as long as you spend time with each variety, you should be able to max out the perk tree depending on how you travel through it. But also as you go up, just pay attention to magazine size versus firepower versus accuracy versus whatever else your perks are going to be. And just figure out what works for you, because everybody's going to be a little bit different. But I would probably advise early on, do a lot of the trials and figure out what class that you want to spend some time on. Because if you're with your buddies and you go through and you're like, all right, I'll play the heavy, and you go through a few missions and you're like, I don't really like this guy, I miss not having a melee, that's fine, but then you're just going to be starting over if you head back over here. So that covers a lot of the progression levels. Again, if you're going to do the fashion game, you get the armor pieces like this. These are class specific as well, but the more time you spend in, say, operations or whatever, that's when I'm going to eventually have this thing unlocked. If I do 35 successful operations, I would unlock this set of armor. So if you spend time in here, you'll get the look. It's the colors where if you can wait, or at least give yourself enough of a buffer, you will never miss out on a perk tree or the next weapon that you want to level up. So that covers pretty much everything in the armoring hall that I can think of. And then remember, your progression in PvP is separate. So if you're going to jump into PvP, just know you're going to be starting over there as well. So I'm going to jump in with what I've got so far. And we're going to jump into a mission so we can talk about what's going on actually while you're in combat. Alright, so no matter what your melee weapon is, power sword, chain sword, what you want to do is pay attention to what your combos are. So the bulwark, for example, actually is kind of unique because I even have a shield and I've got a shield bash option. So while holding C, I can actually do a shield bash attack, which is different than pretty much anything else. With regards to my sword though, and most like the chain sword, the combat knife, the hammer, they're all going to have different move sets. And what you're going to see here is just to switch style, I'm going to hold down that alternate fire. So I'm going to hold down right click. That's the down arrow. Now here you're going to see if I have the speed style on, which is this one, I'm going to do a speed combo. So 4 spings, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that actually also got me into my kind of power stance basically. And what that's going to do is when I'm in the stance, what it's going to do is allow me to kind of release a bigger smash attack. Now for the power sword, for example, I have the option to swap over to, this is the power combo, so it's 3 wide swings, and this is something that's a lot better for groups of enemies. And you can see if I swing and then I tap my middle mouse button, that'll kind of prep my big swing and allow me to do a little bit more. Basically what I'm saying is, one, you'll see up here on each power weapon, whichever one you've got equipped in your menu, is this weapon better for singular enemies? It'll lean towards more of the single skull, or is it better for groups? This one does decent at both because I have 2 different styles, kind of why I've been enjoying the weapon. But just pay attention to what your combos are. The hammer is going to feel very different than the combat knife versus the power sword and the chainsaw and the power glove. If you know what your combos are, you can kind of adjust accordingly and get the most out of your melee combat. So learn the melee combos, it will make things much, much better. So when you're facing bigger or smaller enemies, what you're going to be looking to try and do is manage your health through basically trying to obviously not get hit by anything too major. The other thing you're going to want to make sure you do is try and get as many executions off as possible, because executions, one, give you invincibility frames while the animation is going on. Kind of also similar to a gun strike. When you do that, you get a little target on the enemy and you have the option to shoot them. That little animation also kind of gives you some invincibility frames. When you do either a gun strike when the target shows up, a perfect parry, or a execution, you're also going to get an armor charge back. And there can be times I'm at half health, but I'm living through my armor charges, getting as many executions and proper moves as I can. And that will actually help keep you alive more often than not, because those moves, keeping your armor up, is really important. You can have multiple big enemies in a row, and maybe you're getting some help from your AI enemies or whatever's going on, and you can get multiple executions back to back from whatever happens. That's one armor charge, then another armor charge. The thing to know if you're really getting into high difficulty content, working with other group people, you kind of almost want to communicate and be like, hey, next armor charge, I need one. I need to get my armor charges back up. Hey, if you got one close, let me grab this one. A little communication will probably help those tougher missions be more possible, basically, because you're not stealing all the armor charges. Because if I just sit there and get them over and over and over to be immune and I have full armor, I'm stealing that option from someone else. So I'm going to try and give you guys a little demo of the combat here. These guys may melt them down kind of quick because these two are powerful gun guys, but I'm going to go try and do a little damage on these two melee guys and see if I can get some action on your dodges and your melees and parries. So that's a dodge option. Is the orange circle is going to be a dodge require. The parry is going to be the blue circle, and you notice the gun strike that came up as well. So this is an execution. Nothing's going to hurt me during it. I'm going to get an armor charge back. And then if he goes for, you know, another execution back to back, just keeping me up and busy. Now we got a lot of enemies. The little enemies, when they go for the blue jumps, you'll see a little circle show up, usually if somebody's going to do it, like that. I can hit C, grab the one guy, and then usually that's going to allow me to do kind of an attack that helps. I've got the option to kind of switch my sword between two different attacks, and the ranged enemies are going to be doing some stuff too. Now these green little splatters, these are like poison guys, because this is apparently going to be a crazy wave for me. So I'm going to plop my ability down now, because just apparently everybody's going to show up for this one. Now even if you see an enemy going for a proper attack, you can still parry an attack even though it doesn't have a blue circle. It's almost just like training to give you an option of what's coming. And then you still can go for the parry even though the enemies themselves aren't doing a proper, just like that, a proper attack. You can still parry them if you can get the timing right. So like that, I can get that one off. And then I could go for an execution here back to back. Here's one. Execution back up on another. I'm just going to chain the executions. And then if this guy goes for an attack on me, I can still get the parry. And then eventually it's going to allow me to, you know, get the stun, go for an execution, and manage the battlefield against those big hits a lot better. And I know that's kind of a lot to digest, but orange circle, make sure you dodge, because that's an important thing to get out of the way. If you get a perfect dodge, you can get that little gun strike option. On the other side, though, like if you have AI, they typically won't execute. If you see the blue circle, or you see like the guy winding up for a big swing, that's when you can get your parry attack off, and that's when you're going to get the perfect parry. Allows for the gun strike or a big stagger on the enemies. Bosses, again, kind of a thing to pay attention to. And then, of course, also when it comes to the ranged attacks like snipes, if you can time the dodge right, you're going to avoid the shot because they give a long windup, kind of the sniper laser sight, even if it's red or green or whatever. Takes a little while to get deeper and deeper in color, and then when it's kind of at its deepest point, you need to move because that's going to tag you straight away. So your dodging, your combat rolling, that type of stuff is a good way to get out of, you know, a tough spot, but perfect timing for parries, dodges, gun strikes, all of that's going to help you keep your armor charge up and live through your armor charge in a lot of these difficult fights. The better you are at those skills, the more practice you get with them, the more survivability you're going to have throughout this entire game. Alright, so anytime you see these little green floating guys, and this is mostly for the Terminids, I think there's another variation. The green floating guys are like poison, kind of suicide guys, so what they will do is run at you. So you really want to take a second, if you catch them or you see them starting to come around, pull out the weapon so you can really put in some work on those, because if you get caught off guard by those poison guys, they will absolutely just demolish your health pretty quickly. So keep an eye out for the poison guys. Definitely something to make sure you take care of at range. Alright, so every so often in operations, it seems, you're going to come across one of these things, and they basically allow you to change your loadout. So if you have a couple different loadouts that have been leveled up, depending on if you know certain part of a mission needs a certain kind of loadout, maybe my power sword's not as great, and the pistol, maybe something else I've got's better, you can definitely swap in the middle of the mission. But another thing you can do is you can also refill your kind of abilities. So right now I've got my big banner. That one's charged, you know, I can use up my ammo pretty quickly, blow through it, and then if I come over here and I get my loadout completely reset, that's going to refill ammo, and it's going to reset your ability. So anytime you ever see one of these, if you have something that you need to use for an ability, don't forget that it's there. Pretty sure it's probably not an infinite use thing, but definitely worth passing by, stocking up, and resetting your ability just so you're good to go into the next activity. So in the top left-hand corner of the screen, you're going to see the health bar and the armor charges. Now, if you pick up an armor bonus, you might have one next to that, but that just kind of means you've actually found and picked one up. They're temporary anyway. Different classes, different armor charges. Health bar tends to be the same. The big diamond next to the health bar, if it looks like it does right now with the little double helix kind of spiral shape to it, that means you're okay. If it shows a skull, that means you've got a mortal wound, which means if you go down again after going down once, or twice, depending on what difficulty you're on, that's when you're going to have to go through the full respawn timer, and your teammates are going to have to survive for at least 60 seconds, maybe longer, until you come back. Problem is, if you've got AI, they may survive, they may not. If you've got actual players with you, they will probably be a bit more cautious, but, you know, if you're playing with buddies on, like, comms and anything like that, you might tell them, I have a mortal wound, I gotta play a bit more cautious, whatever it may be, and you can kind of adjust accordingly. But mortal wounds, definitely something, start to play more cautious, try and survive. So another thing that's helpful, even though I'm towards the end of this mission, is your menu that you can pop up for UI. One, you can kind of see the status of your allies and see what they've got. You can see what their benefits are. You can also kind of see the status of, like, I'm holding heals. I've got the armory data for the green level. I've got that stuff picked up, but also the little GPS dot is definitely something to pay attention to because it's pretty good at guiding you around. Now, I just had an enemy wave come in, which is probably not great for me doing a video, but the little GPS dot, if you follow it and you walk to it, it's going to tell you where you're going next. So don't forget about that if you get lost. So this little stack of boxes is something you're going to want to pay attention to because typically they're going to have something valuable. Armor charges, ammo, potentially, you know, maybe a med kit or something like that, but you can just like roll through them, dash into them, whatever. And this way you can potentially find some ammo if you're not near an ammo crate refill. And just take a look. Back here, I've also got a data slate, so these are going to be audio logs, kind of collectibles. And this is pretty much why I say you don't really need to venture that far off the beaten path. Like, if this is the main path that comes from there and heads up to the big opening, but this tiny little corner over here is where you're going to find a couple of things, that's about as far as you're going to have to look. Nothing is going to be too far off the golden path, but if you do check the forks in the road or kind of backtrack a little bit on an alternate route, that's where you're going to kind of do a little bit of the exploration that's available, and you'll find collectibles, you'll find the Guardian relics, things that will allow you to kind of self-res, and all those little collectible things that you're going to want to find, they're all going to be in those slight offshoots of the normal path, but you don't ever have to go that far. So do your exploring, and you'll probably be rewarded by something. Same thing when we come up here. This one's just straight in front of you, but again, see this big stack of boxes? Crash into it, got some more ammo available. So break the boxes when you see that they're around. They might drop something useful. So there are 4 different pickups that you're going to be able to find kind of throughout the world that aren't related to ammo or armor or anything else. One is going to be a data slate, basically just an audio log, listen to it, get an idea of what went on in that mission, in that zone, whatever's going on, gives you a little more backstory to the world. So audio logs, pretty cool, well voice acted, solid. Next one that you're going to have is going to be your armory data, and the armory data is what you're going to use. And I showed you guys that earlier. It's the green, purple, or yellow, depending on what difficulty you're on. These are going to be what you use once you get enough experience in a weapon to open that next tier. This is what you use to kind of purchase the opening of that tier. So you got to usually look a little out of the way for them. All of these things are usually kind of off the beaten path, in the fork in the road, kind of back in a building that you may not have gone into, in a side room, edges of a big room. All of these things are kind of a little out of the way. None of these areas are too hard to explore, but none of this stuff is just usually straight on the golden path. You're going to have to look a little bit for these things. Now, the other 2 things that you can pick up occupy the same space in your inventory, so you can only hold one. One is going to be a Guardian Relic. This is a self-revive feature. Really important. Obviously, if you get in a pinch and in a bad spot, it can really save your bacon if you're on higher difficulty, having trouble with an area. Definitely a good thing to pick up. The alternative, if you're feeling confident, is called a Gene Seed. That is going to allow you to have extra experience awarded to you at the end of the mission if you can hold it with you all the way to the end without going down. So if you're trying higher difficulty, maybe Guardian Relic's the way to go, because when you complete the mission, you do get a lot of experience for it as opposed to failing and only getting partial. But if you're doing a lower difficulty, helping somebody out maybe, trying an alternate thing, but you feel comfortable with the fights, then you could probably pick up the Gene Seed, make it to the end, and then you're probably going to be rewarded better for that. So both of those take up the same space, so you can only hold one or the other. But keep an eye out for the data slates and the armory data, because those are both probably one collectibles for triumphs or, you know, achievements or trophies, I'm guessing. The other one, the armory data, is how you're going to get those upgrades. So those are the 4 pickups that are kind of off the norm. So that charge up that you guys see right here, that means they're calling reinforcements, and you want to use whatever you can to stop that. You may or may not get an execute. You may just stop them from calling reinforcements. That just means you're going to have less enemies to fight, which is always a good thing. Now, even a ranged enemy can have a parry option, and that still means you're going to be able to get a good chunk of damage on them. Same thing, he's trying to call the reinforcements. This time I'm going to go for the execution, and those reinforcements really make your fights longer. Now, when you fire your gun, you've got multiple different hit markers. A singular X cross will be a body shot hit. A double X is going to be a headshot. And then a red mark is going to be a kill. The smaller enemies typically where you're going to see the kills. But if you've got a body shot, and then if I probably get a kill on this one, that's a red one. But if I can get a pure headshot like right on the money, that's going to be the double X. Double X again, and then the kill. So if you are wondering like what you're hitting, single X's are not going to be doing quite as much, but the headshots will make a difference. So if you can pay attention, especially if you're using a sniper or a bolt rifle, something that's longer range and you're curious how you're doing with your shots, pay attention to the markers that are showing up as the bullets are landing. That'll kind of tell you how your accuracy is doing. So all these little green things on the ground are really annoying, but if you shoot the little seed spewing up the stuff in the middle, you can actually stop them from being there. So I know those little green things are quite annoying, but if you look for the seeds, you can actually kind of break them out if you're having some troubles. Now, anytime you find an ammo cache, use it. It will fully replenish ammo, and you can do it over and over and over. There's really no limit to it, so always make sure if you know there's an ammo crate nearby or cache, if you're in kind of a objective arena or a decent sized space or wherever you've got a lot of enemies and one of these is going on, make sure you're kind of doing your figure eight, your circles around, because the ammo cache will always be there and you can be much more liberal in your use of your weapons when that thing's going to be around. Now when it comes to grenades, you have 4 different types. You've got your shot grenades that are going to do that lightning field that you've probably seen from some of my footage. If not, it's just kind of a stunning kind of trickling effect. You've got a frag grenade, just kind of a little area of effect, little thrown attack. Then you're also going to have it's got a different name. It's like a crack grenade. It's like a sticky grenade. And then you've got this Melta bomb. Now what the Melta bomb does is you can actually place it down on the ground, and when you're ready to have it go off, what you can do is you can actually just detonate it. And when it goes off, it's going to do a really big explosion, but it's something you can actually like place, prime, and then kind of have ready for a certain attack. And just one of the big pieces of advice as well with regards to grenades is don't forget about them, because I tend to forget about them quite frequently. And they're one of those things when it comes to, hey, I'm walking up on an area and then all of a sudden I realize, oh, I can just throw like 3 grenades and clear out half of the enemies that are waiting for me. Do it. Just chunk your 3 grenades that you've got on you, because then you will at least eliminate the enemies early. And then you're probably going to find some more later, or if not, it's not a big deal because you're bound to get some more as it goes. Gotta love those little enemy parries because they're basically just a one-off kill. But that's kind of the idea. Your grenades are really something that, like, yeah, here's grenades. I've got 3. And it's just something I can just chunk all 3 of them. And I can clear out a lot of what's there just by using my grenades up. So do not be shy about the grenades. The shot grenade, I think, can hurt you after a little while. But more often than not, the grenades are something you may as well just expend them, because somewhere down the road, if you look a little bit, you're bound to find a lot more. But that Melta grenade, that's the only one that's not a thrown grenade. It is a place and then detonate, and I probably wouldn't stand next to it when it goes off. Just small piece of advice. So I know that covers a lot. As you play more, you hopefully get more comfortable with your melees, your parries, kind of dodges, what to expect from the enemies depending on what missions you do. And also the more you play, you're going to get stronger with your class, your weapons are going to get leveled up, and you should have some good success in there. So I hope all of you Space Marines have an awesome time. If you found this guide helpful, you know, drop a like on the video. It's a nice way to support. If you want to see more from me, hit that subscribe button. I do a lot of guides and content coverage over many different games, so if you like my style, happy to see you back. If there's something major that I forgot, comments are wide open. If you guys get a good list of them of things I forgot, I'll try and compile them into a good pinned comment. Other than that, thank you guys very much. Come hang out with me on Twitch or Twitter, but if you want to support the channel more than anything else, hit that subscribe button. If you want to go farther, you can find my Patreon or YouTube memberships available either place. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon.